There are words that don't just pass through the air, they pierce the armor, they touch the soul, and they awaken the heart that once pulled away. When you're standing before someone who has distanced themselves, you can't chase them with fear, you can't corner them with pressure, and you can't ignite love with demands. But you can speak to the part of them that longs for safety, for truth, for the divine recognition of who they are. The first shift is in your intention. When your words come not from a place of needing to fix them, but from a place of honoring them, everything changes. When you say, I see you, I appreciate the way you're trying, even if it's not perfect, you open a door that fear had shut. The avoidant heart has learned to protect itself, but what it secretly craves is to be understood without judgment. Second, understand this: vulnerability isn't weakness. When you look them in the eye and speak from your truth, being with you matters to me. I don't need you to be perfect. I just want us to grow together. Those words disarm the walls because they are drenched in courage, not control. Authenticity awakens authenticity. Third, shift from command to invitation. Instead of, you need to call me more, you say, I'd love to share more moments with you. It means a lot when I hear your voice. The difference is energy. One pushes, the other pulls. One suffocates, the other breathes life. Love is never about forcing someone into closeness. It's about inviting them into a vision of connection they actually want to step into. Fourth, speak with empathy. When you tell them, I know it's not easy for you to open up, but I respect the way you try in your own way, you're not asking them to change overnight. You're giving them a foundation of trust. That trust is the bridge back to love. And then there are the words that breathe future into the present. I imagine us laughing together 5 years from now, stronger than we've ever been. This isn't fantasy. It's a reminder that what you're building isn't about clinging, it's about creating. The avoidant spirit doesn't fall in love again through fear of loss. It falls in love again through the vision of possibility. So if you want to reach their heart, don't chase them with fear. Call them with truth. Don't demand with anger. Invite with love. Don't beg them to come closer. Inspire them to choose closeness because they feel seen, valued, and safe with you. The words that make an avoidant fall back in love aren't magic spells. They're reflections of who you are when you're at your highest, most loving self. When your voice carries safety, when your truth carries courage, when your vision carries love, even the most distant heart will remember why it chose you in the first place. When you think about what truly makes someone open up, it's not pressure, it's not persuasion, and it's not logic, it's safety. Safety is the bedrock of love, especially for someone with avoidant tendencies. Imagine a person who has built walls around their heart, not because they don't want love, but because at some point in their life, love felt dangerous. It felt overwhelming. It felt like being swallowed by someone else's needs, and they learned to protect themselves the only way they knew how, by pulling away. For them, intimacy without safety feels like a trap, but intimacy with safety feels like liberation. The words that bring them back are words that whisper, you don't have to hide. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to earn my love. That's the language that heals. So many people misunderstand what safety really means in a relationship. Safety is not just about never fighting, never disagreeing, or never feeling discomfort. Safety is about knowing that when conflict arises, love still holds steady. Safety is knowing that your presence doesn't come with conditions. When you say to someone, I accept you where you are, and I'm not here to change you, you're giving them the oxygen to breathe. You're removing the threat that intimacy will smother them. You're showing them that closeness doesn't mean losing freedom. For an avoidant, that distinction is everything. Think about this. If a person spent their whole life associating closeness with criticism or rejection, then every time you push for intimacy, their nervous system interprets it as danger. They may love you, but their body is screaming, protect yourself. That's why the words you choose are critical. When your words create pressure, they trigger fear. But when your words create reassurance, they build safety. When you say, I'm not asking you to change, I'm just here to connect, that message bypasses the defenses and goes straight to the heart. Safety also comes from consistency in your words and actions. It's not enough to say, you're safe with me, and then follow with criticism, ultimatums, or manipulation. Safety is felt when your words align with your behavior. If you tell them, take your time, I'm not going anywhere, and you actually mean it, they feel permission to exhale. The avoidant heart has been conditioned to expect abandonment or pressure, so when your words consistently prove the opposite, you start to rewire their belief system. You become the exception to their rule. Another part of safety is giving emotional breathing room. Love doesn't grow in a climate of urgency, it blossoms in a climate of patience. When you speak words like, I value our connection, and I respect your pace, you're not pushing them forward, you're walking alongside them. That shift in energy transforms the entire dynamic. Suddenly, love doesn't feel like something they're being forced into. It feels like something they're choosing. And choice is vital because an avoidant falls back in love not when they feel cornered, but when they feel free enough to walk toward you. There's also a deeper spiritual principle here. Love that is safe reflects divine love. Think about it. The purest form of love doesn't demand, it doesn't manipulate, it doesn't threaten. It simply says, you are enough as you are. When your words echo that truth, you're not just speaking to the mind of the avoidant. You're speaking to their soul. You're reminding them of a love that is unconditional, a love that has no agenda, but connection, a love that feels like home. That's the safety their heart has been craving all along. And remember this, words that create safety are simple, but their impact is profound. Saying, I see you, or you don't have to explain yourself, may feel small, but to someone who has been misunderstood their whole life, it's everything. Saying, I'm here, without adding, but only if you do this or that, dismantles years of conditioning in a single moment. The avoidant isn't looking for grand speeches or elaborate promises. They're looking for words that tell them, with me you can rest. That is the soil where love can take root again. Recognition without demands is one of the most powerful ways to reopen the heart of someone who has distanced themselves. Think about how most of us respond when we feel unappreciated. We begin to withdraw. We question whether our efforts matter, and eventually we wonder if the connection is even worth it. Now imagine an avoidant, someone who already struggles with closeness, experiencing that lack of recognition. The pull to retreat becomes even stronger. Yet the opposite is also true. When you recognize them genuinely, when you see their effort, no matter how small, and you celebrate it without attaching a price tag, their defenses begin to soften. Recognition acts like sunlight on frozen ground. It slowly melts the ice without force, and new life can begin to grow. This kind of recognition isn't about flattery or empty praise. It's about being present enough to notice the little things. Maybe they sent you a message after a long silence. Instead of responding with, finally you texted, which carries demand and criticism, you can say, it means a lot to hear from you. That small shift transforms the interaction. Instead of feeling like they failed you by not meeting your timeline, they feel acknowledged for the step they did take. To the avoidant, that's not just validation, that's safety. It shows them you're not keeping score, you're appreciating their effort. When you make recognition conditional, when every compliment or thank you is followed by but, you undo the gift of acknowledgement. Words like, I love that you called me, but why don't you do it more often? Turn connection into a transaction. You've taken something pure and turned it into a demand. That's the very dynamic that drives an avoidant further into their shell. They don't feel celebrated, they feel judged. Recognition without demands means celebrating the act for what it is, without trying to leverage it for more. It's saying, I see you, I value you, and I'm grateful, and stopping there. Recognition also speaks to a deep human need, the need to matter. Every one of us wants to feel significant in the eyes of the person we love. For someone with avoidant tendencies, this need is buried under layers of self-protection. They may not ask for praise. They may even shrug it off when you give it, but internally, it touches them. It tells them, you're not invisible here. You don't have to earn your worth through constant performance. Who you are and what you bring matters to me. That message sinks in deeper than any demand for change ever could. Another key aspect of recognition without demands is timing. Sometimes the most powerful recognition comes in quiet moments, not in grand declarations. A simple, I noticed how hard you worked today, or I love the way you think about things, can break through walls faster than long speeches about what they need to do differently. The avoidant mind often anticipates criticism. When you surprise them with acknowledgement instead, you rewrite the script they expect. Slowly, they learn that being with you doesn't mean being constantly measured or corrected. It means being seen and valued. There's also a spiritual layer to recognition. At its core, recognition is about witnessing the divine in another person. It's about saying, I see the essence of you, and I honor it. When you recognize without demands, you're reflecting unconditional love. Love that doesn't say, I'll see your value when you become what I want you to be. It says, I already see your value right now as you are. That kind of love disarms even the most guarded hearts because it speaks to a truth that's bigger than fear. And here's the beauty of it. Recognition creates a cycle. When an avoidant feels appreciated, they are more likely to step forward, to give more of themselves, to trust the connection. Not because you demanded it, but because they want to. Recognition nurtures willingness, not obligation. And when love flows from willingness, it lasts, it deepens. It becomes something both people want to protect. Recognition without demands is not just a strategy for connection. It is a way of embodying love in its purest form. Vulnerability is often misunderstood in relationships, especially when dealing with someone who pulls away. Many people assume vulnerability means weakness, as if revealing your heart is the same as surrendering your power. But the truth is, vulnerability is the highest form of strength because it takes courage to be real. For an avoidant who has learned to survive by hiding behind walls, vulnerability can be both terrifying and magnetic. When they encounter someone who speaks from their heart with courage, not with control, something inside them shifts. They begin to see that closeness doesn't have to equal danger. That intimacy can feel safe when it's authentic. Your willingness to show up without the mask inspires them to let go of their own armor. Consider how most people try to reach an avoidant. They use logic, arguments, or pressure to convince them to open up. But logic can't penetrate fear, and pressure only activates resistance. Vulnerability, on the other hand, bypasses those defenses because it doesn't attack, it invites. When you look someone in the eye and say, I care about you, and I'm scared sometimes too, but I still choose us, you're not manipulating, you're not demanding, you're simply telling the truth. That truth carries a weight that no clever argument ever could. It resonates on a level that is human, raw, and undeniable. What makes vulnerability so powerful is that it strips away pretense. You're not trying to be perfect. You're not pretending you don't care. You're not hiding behind pride or ego. You're exposing the truth of your heart. For an avoidant who is used to people demanding more or criticizing what they give, this is disarming. Vulnerability says, I'm not here to control you. I'm here to connect. It signals safety because it shows you trust them enough to reveal your true self. And trust is contagious. When you extend it, more often than not, it inspires them to extend it back. Vulnerability also changes the energy of conflict. Imagine a situation where you feel neglected. The instinct might be to lash out with words like, you never make time for me. That only pushes them further away. But if you say instead, I miss you, and it hurts because I love being close to you, the energy is entirely different. You're still expressing the truth, but now it's vulnerable truth. It's not an attack, it's an opening. The avoidant can hear love in that message, not accusation. And love is much harder to defend against than criticism. There's another layer here too. Vulnerability isn't just about speaking your pain. It's also about speaking your joy, your gratitude, your dreams. When you tell them, being with you makes me feel alive, or I love the way your mind works, you're exposing your emotional truth in a way that deepens intimacy. It takes courage to admit how much someone means to you, especially when they sometimes distance themselves. But those words, spoken without expectation, remind them of their value in your life. They remind them that love is not about pressure, but about presence. Spiritually, vulnerability reflects the essence of love itself. Love in its purest form doesn't come armored. It doesn't calculate or manipulate. It simply gives of itself fully and freely. When you embody that, you're not only modeling a different way of relating, you're also awakening the avoidant to a higher possibility of love. You're showing them that intimacy doesn't have to mean losing themselves. It can mean finding themselves more deeply in the presence of another. The beauty of vulnerability is that it creates connection where there was distance. It builds bridges where there were walls. It says, here I am, imperfect and human, but open. That message over time can become the very catalyst for an avoidant to lower their guard and step closer. Because no matter how much someone has withdrawn, the human heart is still wired for connection. And when you dare to lead with vulnerability, you're not only giving them permission to love again, you're giving them a reason. Invitations over instructions is one of the most transformative principles when it comes to drawing an avoidant closer. Instructions, no matter how well-intentioned, often feel like control. When you tell someone what they need to do, how they need to act, or when they should show up, the message underneath can feel like who you are right now isn't enough. For someone with avoidant tendencies, this echoes their deepest fears of being inadequate or smothered, and it triggers their instinct to pull away. But when you extend an invitation instead of a command, you shift the entire dynamic. An invitation honors their freedom. It says, I want you here, but the choice is yours. That energy creates curiosity, not resistance. It makes love feel like a choice, not a cage. Think about the difference between saying, you need to spend more time with me, versus, I'd love to spend more time with you. The first statement feels heavy, as if there's an invisible checklist you're holding against them. The second feels light, like a hand reaching out. The content might seem similar, but the emotional impact is worlds apart. One message places responsibility and guilt on their shoulders. The other opens a door and welcomes them in. For an avoidant, that difference can mean the choice between retreating into silence or leaning into closeness. Invitations also honor autonomy, and autonomy is crucial for someone who fears losing themselves in a relationship. When you use words like, would you like to join me? Or it would mean a lot if you came, you're acknowledging their right to choose. And paradoxically, the more freedom they feel, the more likely they are to move toward you. People don't resist love, they resist losing themselves in love. By framing your desires as invitations, you make it clear that being with you isn't about control, it's about partnership. That subtle shift transforms the way they experience intimacy. Another reason invitations are so powerful is that they inspire curiosity. An avoidant often resists when they feel cornered, but they respond positively when they feel drawn in. Imagine saying, I'd love to share a walk with you just to enjoy the moment together. That paints a picture that stirs interest. It's not about what they should do, it's about what they could experience. When love feels like an adventure instead of an obligation, walls begin to crumble. Invitations awaken the desire to participate because they frame connection as a gift, not a task. Invitations also carry a spirit of generosity. They don't demand love, they offer love. When you extend an invitation, you're essentially saying, here's what I'd love, and I'd be honored to share it with you. There's humility in that, there's openness, and that openness is contagious. For an avoidant who has been conditioned to believe intimacy will cost them their freedom, this generosity feels refreshing. It shows them that being close to you doesn't mean surrendering control. It means stepping into a space where their presence is wanted but not required, valued but not demanded. Spiritually, invitations mirror the way the divine works in our lives. The highest form of love never forces itself. It doesn't shout, you must. It whispers, you may. It opens the door but never drags you through. When you model this same principle in your relationship, you reflect a love that is free, expansive, and deeply respectful. That kind of love is magnetic because it's rooted in respect for the other person's soul. It doesn't bind, it liberates. And here's the paradox. When love is given as an invitation rather than an instruction, it becomes irresistible. The avoidant who has spent years protecting their independence suddenly realizes that closeness with you doesn't threaten their freedom, it enhances it. They discover that saying yes to you doesn't mean losing themselves. It means gaining a deeper connection, a richer experience of love, and a partner who values who they are. That realization is what makes them choose love again, not out of duty, but out of desire. Empathy is one of the most powerful forces in human connection, and it becomes even more vital when you are dealing with someone who leans avoidant in love. At its core, empathy is the ability to step outside of your own perspective and enter theirs, to feel what they feel and to understand their inner world without trying to immediately change or fix it. For the avoidant, this is life-giving because so much of their story is about not being understood, not being safe to express themselves, or feeling like love will always come with strings attached. When your words reflect empathy, when you can communicate, I see you, I get that this is hard for you, and I still value you. You're offering them the rare gift of being seen without judgment. That gift builds trust, and trust is the foundation that allows love to grow again. Empathy is not about agreeing with everything they do or pretending that their distance never hurts. It's about saying, I can see why you might need space sometimes, and I respect that even though I miss you when you're gone. This kind of statement acknowledges your own feelings without dismissing theirs. It creates a bridge between two worlds instead of a battle line. An avoidant doesn't soften because someone pressures them into intimacy. They soften because they feel understood enough to want intimacy. Your empathy tells them, you don't have to fight me, I'm not your enemy, I'm on your side. That simple message is often the turning point where walls begin to come down. There is also a difference between surface level sympathy and true empathy. Sympathy says, I feel bad for you, while empathy says, I feel with you. Sympathy keeps you outside of their experience, but empathy steps inside and says, I can imagine how that must feel. For someone who struggles with trust, empathy is like water on parched soil. It nourishes without demanding anything in return. When you can say, I understand that opening up isn't easy for you, and I appreciate the effort you do make, you're validating their struggle and honoring their courage at the same time. That validation makes them feel safe enough to try again. Empathy also removes shame from the equation. Many avoidants already feel a quiet shame about their inability to connect in the ways they think they should. They may believe they're broken or unlovable. And every demand for more only reinforces that belief. When you meet them with empathy, you're not saying, you're failing me. You're saying, I see the good in you even in this struggle. That kind of acceptance is liberating. It shifts their internal dialogue from, I'm not enough, to maybe I am worthy of being loved as I am. And when someone feels worthy, they're far more likely to risk closeness. Practicing empathy also requires patience. It means resisting the urge to react when their behavior triggers your own insecurities. Instead of firing back with anger or withdrawing in retaliation, empathy pauses and asks, what must this feel like for them? That simple shift in perspective transforms the energy between you. It's no longer a cycle of demand and withdrawal. It becomes a rhythm of understanding and trust. This doesn't mean you never express your needs. It means you express them in a way that acknowledges their experience too. That balance is what builds a bond strong enough to handle both your differences. On a spiritual level, empathy is love in action. It's the reflection of the divine truth that we are all connected, that to see another person's heart is to honor the spark of life within them. When you empathize, you're saying, I recognize the human in you the same way I hope you recognize the human in me. That acknowledgement alone can heal wounds that have been carried for years. For the avoidant who has often been told they are too distant, too hard to love, or too difficult, empathy is a revelation. It tells them you are not too much or too little. You are simply human, and I accept you. And here's the beauty: empathy doesn't just change them, it changes you. The more you practice it, the more you expand your own capacity to love without conditions. You begin to see that their distance isn't a rejection of you, but a reflection of their own fears. And instead of reacting with hurt, you can respond with compassion. That compassion becomes the fertile ground where trust can flourish, where intimacy can be rebuilt, and where love can not only return but deepen. When you're trying to inspire an avoidant to fall back in love, it's not enough to only talk about the present moment. The present is where their fears live: the fear of being trapped, the fear of losing independence, the fear of not being enough. But when you shift the conversation to the future and anchor it in love, you give them something powerful to lean into. The future is where hope resides, where possibility exists, where the imagination can create something better than what is now. Words that paint a vision of a loving future do not sound like pressure, they sound like inspiration. They're not about clinging or desperation, they're about creating a higher purpose that both of you can step into together. When you say, I imagine us growing stronger together, building a life where we both feel free and connected, you're doing more than expressing desire. You're planting a seed. For the avoidant, who often fears closeness in the present, the vision of a future built on mutual respect and love helps them reframe intimacy as a source of possibility rather than loss. You're inviting them to see that love doesn't mean giving up who they are. It means expanding who they are with someone who believes in them. That shift in perspective can ignite hope where fear once dominated. Future vision anchored in love is not about fantasy or empty promises. It's about grounding your words in truth while pointing to a higher reality. If you tell them, I want us to be partners who bring out the best in each other 5 years from now, you're not avoiding the present struggles. You're acknowledging them while declaring that they don't define the destiny of your connection. This helps the avoidant step out of the cycle of immediate fear and into the possibility of long-term growth. The future becomes a canvas, and love becomes the brush you use to paint it. The way you frame this vision matters. It cannot come from a place of control, as in, one day you'll finally be the partner I need. That communicates pressure and inadequacy. Instead, it needs to come from love, as in, I see us learning and evolving together. That phrasing communicates partnership, not demand. It tells them that the future is not about one person bending to the other's will, but about two people rising together. That's a vision even the most avoidant heart can lean into, because it honors freedom while celebrating unity. There's also a motivational power in speaking about the future. Humans are driven not just by where they are, but by where they believe they're going. When you describe a vision of laughter, closeness, and shared purpose, you awaken their natural desire for growth. You help them see that love isn't static, it's dynamic, it's evolving, it's expansive. For someone who has always feared that intimacy will suffocate them, this perspective is liberating. It says, with me you won't shrink, with me you'll expand. That message inspires rather than pressures, and inspiration is the most powerful force in rekindling love. On a spiritual level, this practice mirrors the principle of faith, the ability to see what is not yet visible. Love requires faith. It requires seeing beyond the current obstacles to the higher possibility that exists when two people commit to something greater than themselves. When you use words that speak this kind of future into existence, you're not only guiding the avoidant out of fear, you're also aligning your relationship with a divine principle. That love is not meant to stagnate, it's meant to grow, to evolve, to transform. And here's the magic. When an avoidant hears you speak about a future that is both safe and inspiring, they begin to internalize that vision. It becomes less about escaping the present and more about moving towards something beautiful. They start to associate closeness with possibility instead of threat. They start to believe that love could actually expand their world instead of shrink it. That belief, once planted, grows stronger with every word, every action, every moment of reassurance. And it's that belief, anchored in love and hope, that makes them fall back in love with you, not because they're forced, but because they're inspired to. And so, remember this, love isn't about fixing someone, forcing them, or trying to break down their walls. It's about creating the safety, recognition, vulnerability, invitations, empathy, and vision that inspire their heart to come closer on its own. When you embody these principles, you don't just rekindle love, you elevate it into something sacred, something unshakable. Something that reflects the highest truth of who you are together. Thank you for opening your heart. Thank you for daring to grow. And thank you for allowing these words to guide you back to the love that is not only possible, but destined for you.